Hello and welcome to Mr.Game Review Show. Don't forget to subscribe the channel, hit the like button and put a comment below the video. Thank you so much. Comix Zone is a highly regarded game released for the Sega Mega Drive, also known as the Genesis in North America in 1995. It stands out for its unique concept, where the protagonist, Sketch Turner, is a comic book artist who gets sucked into his own creation. The game's art style and gameplay mimic the look and feel of a comic book, with the action taking place within the panels of the comic itself. The visual style of Comix Zone is its most distinctive feature. The game is designed to look like a comic book, with characters and environments appearing as hand-drawn illustrations. The player moves through comic panels, and transitions between them often involve sketch punching through the paper or jumping from one panel to the next. This comic book aesthetic is further enhanced by speech bubbles, sound effects written out in text like BAM and WHAM, and bold, colorful art. Comix Zone is a side-scrolling beat-em-up with puzzle elements. Players control Sketch as he battles his way through enemies, solves environmental puzzles, and interacts with the comic book world. The game is challenging, requiring careful management of health and resources. Unlike many other beat-em-ups, Comix Zone has a more strategic feel, as players must often solve puzzles and navigate traps to progress. One of the game's unique mechanics is that Sketch can tear off pieces of the comic to use as weapons or to solve puzzles. However, this also costs him health, so players must use this ability wisely. The game is notoriously difficult. It features a limited number of lives and continues, and when you die, you must start over from the beginning. The high difficulty level can be frustrating, especially considering the game's relatively short length. However, this also gives it a certain appeal to those who enjoy a tough challenge. The soundtrack of Comix Zone complements the action well, featuring a mix of rock and electronic music that matches the game's intense pace. The sound effects, many of which are presented as onomatopoeic text in the comic panels, add to the immersion in the comic book world. The plot is simple but effective. Sketch Turner is a struggling comic book artist who gets pulled into his own comic by his villainous creation, Mortis. Mortis intends to kill Sketch and take his place in the real world. Sketch must fight his way through the comic book's chapters to stop Mortis and return to the real world. While the story isn't deep, it's engaging enough to keep players invested, especially with its unique presentation. Upon its release, Comix Zone was praised for its originality, graphics, and sound, but it was also criticized for its high difficulty and short length. Despite these criticisms, it has maintained a cult following over the years and is often remembered as one of the standout titles on the Sega Mega Drive. The composer for Comix Zone was Howard Drawson. He is known for his work on various video game soundtracks, and his music for Comix Zone is particularly praised for its rock-inspired tracks that perfectly match the game's comic book aesthetic and intense action. Comix Zone features several memorable boss fights, each designed to fit within the game's comic book theme. The boss fights are generally challenging and require a combination of combat skills, puzzle solving, and strategic thinking. Here's an overview of the key bosses and their characteristics. Mongor. Mongor is a large, ape-like creature with sharp claws. He is the first major boss in the game and appears in Episode 1, Chapter 2. Mongor uses powerful physical attacks and can deal significant damage if not avoided. The fight takes place in a small area, which can make dodging his attacks tricky. Players need to utilize Sketch's agility to dodge Mongor's attacks and strike when he's vulnerable. Timing is crucial, as getting hit by Mongor can deplete your health quickly. Gravis. Gravis is a humanoid creature with rocky, stone-like skin. This boss appears in Episode 2, Chapter 1. Gravis can manipulate the environment, using rock and earth attacks against Sketch. He can also summon boulders and create shockwaves that are difficult to avoid. Players must avoid getting cornered and look for opportunities to counterattack. Using the environment to your advantage and keeping a safe distance can help in defeating Gravis, Mortis. Mortis is the game's main antagonist and appears as a menacing, shadowy figure with dark powers. The final showdown with Mortis occurs in Episode 2, Chapter 2. Unlike the other bosses, Mortis has the ability to manipulate the comic book world itself, making the fight more complex. He uses a variety of dark magic attacks, and his ability to alter the environment can make the battle particularly challenging. Overall, the boss fights in Comix Zone are challenging and creatively designed, fitting well within the game's unique comic book style. They add to the game's overall difficulty, making victory all the more rewarding.